What happens when a routine morning interview suddenly feels less like a promotion and more like a moment of truth? What happens when a question meant to spark conversation instead creates a silence so noticeable that the audience can hear the rustle of cue cards from across the studio? Before we continue with this dramatic story, make sure you subscribe to Prime Spotlight, hit the like button, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on celebrity interviews that become unforgettable moments. The cameras moved across the set of The View, catching the warm studio lights and the anticipation of the live audience. The hosts were already seated at the table: Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sara Haines. Their expressions were welcoming, but there was also the familiar energy that comes when a major guest is about to enter. "Today," Whoopi said, her voice carrying across the studio, "we're joined by an actress whose work has defined some of the most memorable performances in modern film." The audience applauded enthusiastically. "Please welcome Nicole Kidman." Nicole Kidman stepped onto the stage with her characteristic poise. She waved to the audience, greeted each host warmly, and took her seat at the table. Her presence brought an immediate sense of elegance to the set, and the applause continued for several moments before fading into attentive silence. "Nicole, it's wonderful to have you here," Sara said. "Thank you," Nicole replied with a warm smile. "It's lovely to be here." The interview began with familiar territory. Joy asked about Nicole's latest fictional project. Sunny asked about the emotional preparation required for certain roles, and Sara asked how she chooses stories that resonate with her personally. Nicole answered thoughtfully. "I'm always drawn to stories that reveal something truthful about human nature," she said. "Whether the character is flawed, vulnerable, or resilient, I think audiences connect with honesty." The audience applauded. Whoopi nodded. "That honesty is something people often mention when they talk about your work." Nicole smiled modestly. "I think honesty is what makes storytelling meaningful. People can sense when a performance comes from a genuine emotional place." For several minutes, the conversation remained warm and engaging. The hosts and Nicole shared light laughter about filming experiences, the unpredictability of certain roles, and the challenges of balancing artistic ambition with personal life. Then Whoopi glanced down at her notes. The shift was subtle but noticeable. Nicole's smile remained pleasant, though she tilted her head slightly, as if sensing that the conversation was about to move in a more personal direction. "Nicole," Whoopi said, looking up from her notes, "can I ask you something a little more personal?" Nicole nodded politely. "Of course." The audience quieted. Whoopi continued. "You've spent decades in the public eye, and people admire not only your work, but also the way you've carried yourself through many different stages of your career. Do you ever feel pressure to maintain a certain image for the public?" Nicole paused for a brief moment before answering. "I think anyone in the public eye feels pressure at times," she said. "But over the years, I've learned that trying to maintain a perfect image is not sustainable. What matters more is being authentic." The audience applauded softly. Whoopi leaned forward slightly. "So authenticity is more important to you than maintaining a flawless public image?" "Yes," Nicole replied. "I think audiences connect more deeply with honesty and vulnerability than with an image that appears untouchable." Sunny nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense, especially in an industry where public perception can be so powerful." Nicole agreed. "Public perception is certainly part of the landscape, but I've also learned that if you focus too much on managing how others see you, you can lose touch with your own sense of self." The audience murmured in agreement. Joy added with a smile. "And that's probably true for people outside Hollywood, too." Laughter rippled through the studio. Nicole laughed softly. "I think so." The mood remained light, but the conversation had taken on a more reflective tone. Whoopi looked at Nicole with curiosity. "But audiences often feel very connected to celebrities they admire," Whoopi said. "Do you think that connection creates an expectation that public figures should share more of themselves?" The room grew quieter. Nicole considered the question carefully. "I think connection is one of the most beautiful aspects of storytelling," she said. "People connect with performances, with characters, and with the emotions that stories evoke. But that connection does not necessarily mean that every aspect of a person's private life should become public." The audience applauded more strongly. Whoopi nodded slowly. "So you believe there should still be clear boundaries?" "Absolutely," Nicole said. "Boundaries are essential for maintaining a healthy sense of self, especially in a profession where so much of your work is already shared with the world." Sunny watched the exchange with interest. "That's a very thoughtful distinction," Sunny said. Nicole smiled gently. I think it's an important one. Sharing your work with the public is different from surrendering every part of your personal life to public consumption. A quiet murmur moved through the audience. Whoopi raised her eyebrows slightly, impressed by the clarity of the response. Joy glanced toward Sara, who smiled thoughtfully. The cameras moved in closer as the conversation settled into a more emotionally charged atmosphere. What had begun as a warm interview was becoming a deeper discussion about fame, privacy, authenticity, and the boundaries between public admiration and personal space. And as the audience listened in attentive silence, everyone in the studio could sense that the conversation was only beginning. The applause from Nicole Kidman's previous response faded into a thoughtful hush. The studio lights seemed brighter now, not because they had changed, but because the conversation had shifted into a more intimate and reflective space. Whoopi Goldberg rested her hands lightly on the table, studying Nicole with genuine curiosity. I appreciate what you're saying, Whoopi began. But let me ask you this. Do you think there's ever a tension between authenticity and the image that the public expects from someone with your level of fame? Nicole smiled politely, though her expression grew more contemplative. Yes, I think there can be tension, she said. The public often sees a curated version of a person's life. Interviews, red carpets, film roles, and public appearances all contribute to that image. But authenticity means acknowledging that there is also a private, more complex human being behind the public persona. The audience murmured in agreement. Joy Behar leaned forward. So, how do you navigate that tension? Joy asked. How do you remain authentic while also understanding that people have expectations of you? Nicole considered the question carefully. I think it comes down to being honest about what I'm willing to share, she replied. I'm happy to discuss my work, my creative process, and the stories that inspire me. But I also believe there are parts of life that deserve privacy and protection. The audience applauded softly. Sara Haines nodded. That makes a lot of sense, Sara said. Everyone has parts of their life that they keep private, even if they're not in the public eye. Nicole turned toward Sara. Exactly, she said. Fame may increase public interest, but it doesn't erase the basic human need for personal space. Sunny Hostin smiled thoughtfully. I think that's an important distinction, Sunny said. Public interest and personal entitlement are not the same thing. Nicole nodded. Yes, and I think that distinction can sometimes become blurred. People may feel connected to an actor because they've watched their films for years, but that connection does not automatically grant access to every detail of that actor's private life. The audience applauded more strongly. Whoopi leaned forward slightly. But do you ever feel pressure to share more than you're comfortable sharing? Whoopi asked. Nicole paused before answering. There can be pressure, she admitted. The entertainment industry and media environment often encourage openness. But I've learned that sharing should come from a place of genuine comfort, not from a sense of obligation. The audience listened intently. Joy nodded. That's a very grounded way to look at it. Nicole smiled. I think boundaries are healthiest when they are clear. They allow a person to engage with the public in a meaningful way, while still preserving the parts of life that need to remain personal. Whoopi looked thoughtful. Some people might say that fans feel invested in celebrities because they've supported their careers for so long, Whoopi said. How do you respond to that perspective? Nicole answered gently. I understand why people feel invested, she said. I'm deeply grateful for the support audiences have given me throughout my career. Their support has allowed me to do work I love. But gratitude does not require someone to surrender every aspect of their private life. The audience erupted into applause. Sunny nodded. That's a very important point. Nicole continued. I think the healthiest relationship between a public figure and an audience is based on appreciation and respect. Audiences can appreciate the work, connect with the stories, and support the career without expecting unlimited access to the person behind the work. Sara smiled. That's a very balanced perspective. The conversation settled into a quieter rhythm for a moment. The hosts exchanged thoughtful glances, and the audience seemed deeply engaged in the discussion. Then Whoopi looked back at Nicole. Nicole, let me ask you something directly, Whoopi said. Do you think there are moments when the media or public commentary can make it difficult for celebrities to maintain that balance? Nicole's expression remained calm. Yes, I think there can be moments when the pressure becomes intense, she said. Public commentary can sometimes focus on aspects of a person's life that are deeply personal. In those moments, maintaining boundaries becomes even more important. The audience grew quiet. Joy asked another question. How do you decide what to share and what to keep private? Nicole smiled softly. I think it depends on the context and on what feels appropriate, she said. I'm comfortable sharing experiences that relate to my work, my creative process, and certain life lessons. But there are other aspects of life that I choose to protect because they involve family, relationships, and personal well-being. The audience applauded warmly. Sunny looked thoughtful. That's a very clear way to frame it. Nicole nodded. I think clarity is important. When boundaries are communicated respectfully, they can actually create healthier relationships between public figures and their audiences. Whoopi smiled. So boundaries don't necessarily create distance? Nicole met Whoopi's gaze. No, she said. I believe boundaries create clarity. They help define what is being shared publicly and what remains personal. That clarity can make the connection more respectful and sustainable. The audience applauded again. Joy laughed softly. Well, that was beautifully put. Nicole smiled. Thank you. For a brief moment, the tension eased, replaced by a sense of mutual understanding. But the conversation still carried an undercurrent of emotional weight. Whoopi glanced down at her notes once more. One more question, she said. The studio became quiet again. Nicole nodded politely. Of course. Whoopi asked, do you ever worry that maintaining firm boundaries might make some people feel disconnected from you? Nicole looked directly at Whoopi. Her expression remained warm, but her voice carried a quiet firmness. I would hope that people understand that boundaries are not a rejection of connection, Nicole said. They are simply a way of maintaining a healthy balance. I'm grateful for the connection audiences feel through my work, and I value that connection deeply. But I also believe that preserving certain aspects of personal life is essential for emotional well-being. The audience erupted into applause. Whoopi smiled appreciatively. Joy nodded. Sunny applauded lightly. Sara smiled, acknowledging the strength of the response. The cameras moved in closer as the applause continued. What had begun as a discussion about fame and public image had evolved into a thoughtful conversation about authenticity, privacy, and the boundaries that allow people to maintain a sense of self in a world that often demands constant access. And as the applause gradually faded, everyone in the studio could sense that the conversation was becoming even more meaningful. The applause softened into a thoughtful murmur, but the atmosphere in the studio remained charged with a quieter kind of intensity. The conversation had moved beyond the usual rhythm of a celebrity interview and into territory that felt more personal, more reflective, and more revealing. Nicole Kidman sat composed at the table, her posture relaxed but attentive. Across from her, Whoopi Goldberg regarded her with genuine curiosity, while Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sara Haines listened closely. Whoopi spoke first. Nicole, I think what's making this conversation resonate is that it's touching on something many people experience, she said. Not everyone is in the public eye, but everyone has to decide what parts of themselves they want to share with the world. Nicole nodded. I think that's true, she replied. Boundaries are not only relevant to celebrities. They are relevant to all of us. We all have relationships, responsibilities, and parts of our lives that we may choose to keep private. The audience applauded softly. Sunny leaned in slightly. Do you think social media has changed the way people view boundaries? Sunny asked. Nicole considered the question carefully. Yes, I do, she said. Social media has created a culture where sharing has become very common. That can be wonderful in many ways, because it allows people to connect and express themselves. But it can also create pressure to reveal more than one is comfortable revealing. The audience listened intently. Joy nodded. That pressure can be very real, even for people who aren't famous. Absolutely, Nicole agreed. And for public figures, the pressure can be amplified because there is often a strong public appetite for personal stories and behind-the-scenes access. Whoopi looked thoughtful. So how do you resist that pressure when it becomes intense? Whoopi asked. Nicole smiled gently. I remind myself that privacy is not something to feel guilty about, she said. Protecting certain aspects of one's life is a healthy and necessary choice. It allows a person to maintain emotional balance and preserve relationships that matter deeply. The audience applauded warmly. Sara added, That's a very reassuring message. Nicole nodded. I hope so. I think many people need to hear that boundaries are not a sign of being closed off. They are a sign of knowing what you need in order to remain healthy and grounded. Sunny looked back at Nicole. But do you ever feel conflicted about where to draw the line? Sunny asked. because public figures often want to connect with their audiences while also protecting their personal lives. Nicole answered thoughtfully. Yes, there can be tension there, she said. I value the connection I have with audiences. I'm grateful when people respond to my work or feel moved by a story I've been part of. But I also believe that connection does not require complete transparency. The audience murmured in agreement. Whoopi nodded. That's an important distinction. Nicole continued. I think connection is strongest when it is built on authenticity. And authenticity does not mean revealing every private detail. It means being honest about who you are and honest about the boundaries you need. The audience applauded again. Joy smiled. You're making a very persuasive case for boundaries. Nicole laughed softly. I think boundaries have gotten a bad reputation sometimes, she said. People can interpret them as rejection or distance, when in reality they can create healthier and more respectful relationships. The audience laughed and applauded. Sara turned toward Nicole. Can you give an example of how a boundary can actually strengthen a relationship? Sara asked. Nicole thought for a moment. I think clarity is the key, she said. When people understand what is being shared and what is being protected, there is less confusion and less room for misunderstanding. Clear boundaries allow relationships to exist within a framework of mutual respect. Sunny nodded. That makes sense. Whoopi leaned forward slightly. Nicole, let me ask you this, Whoopi said. Has your understanding of boundaries changed over the course of your career? Nicole paused before answering. Yes, very much so, she said. When I was younger, I was still learning how to navigate public attention. Over time, I realized that boundaries were not obstacles to connection. They were tools for maintaining balance and preserving the parts of life that are most meaningful. The audience grew quiet. Joy asked another question. What helped you come to that realization? Nicole smiled softly. Life experience, she said, and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. Career success is important, but so are family, friendships, health, and the ability to have moments that are not defined by public scrutiny. The audience applauded warmly. Sara nodded. That's a very grounded perspective. Nicole smiled. Thank you. For a moment, the conversation settled into a calmer rhythm. The hosts exchanged thoughtful glances, and the audience seemed deeply engaged in the discussion. Then Whoopi looked back at Nicole. Some people might argue that celebrities benefit from public attention, so there is an implied responsibility to share more of themselves, Whoopi said. How would you respond to that? Nicole answered carefully. I understand that public attention is part of a public career, she said, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that attention has brought. But I don't believe that professional visibility should be confused with personal obligation. Sharing one's work with the public is different from surrendering one's entire private life to public consumption. The audience applauded strongly. Sunny smiled. That's a very clear distinction. Nicole nodded. I think it's an important one. Public figures can engage with audiences, share aspects of their experiences, and express gratitude for support while still maintaining personal boundaries. Whoopi smiled appreciatively. I think that's a powerful perspective. Nicole smiled back. I think it's a human perspective. The audience erupted into applause. As the applause continued, the cameras moved in closer to capture the expressions around the table. Whoopi looked thoughtful, Joy appeared impressed, Sunny smiled with understanding, and Sara nodded warmly. What had begun as a simple interview had evolved into a meaningful conversation about authenticity, privacy, and the ways people maintain their sense of self in a world that often encourages constant visibility. And as the applause gradually faded, everyone in the studio could sense that the conversation was approaching a powerful conclusion. The applause slowly settled into a warm hum, but the atmosphere in the studio remained unmistakably charged. What had started as a polished morning interview had transformed into a thoughtful conversation about privacy, authenticity, and the expectations placed on public figures. Nicole Kidman sat calmly at the table, her expression composed yet reflective. Whoopi Goldberg looked at her with a respectful smile, while Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sara Haines exchanged thoughtful glances. Whoopi spoke first. I think this has become a much deeper conversation than any of us expected when we started, she said. And I think that's a good thing. The audience applauded. Nicole smiled. I agree, she said. Conversations like this can be uncomfortable at times, but they can also be very important. Whoopi nodded. I appreciate your honesty, Whoopi said. And I appreciate that you were willing to engage with these questions directly. Nicole turned toward Whoopi. Thank you, she replied. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that affects not only public figures, but many people in everyday life. Sara added, I think that's why this resonated with so many people in the audience. Boundaries are something everyone has to navigate. Nicole nodded. Exactly. Whether someone is a celebrity or not, everyone has the right to decide what parts of their life they want to share and what parts they want to protect. Joy smiled. And that's probably a lesson many of us can use in the age of social media. Laughter rippled through the studio. Nicole laughed softly. Definitely. The mood lightened for a moment, but the conversation remained emotionally grounded. Whoopi leaned forward slightly. Nicole, if you could leave viewers with one message about boundaries in public life, what would it be? She asked. Nicole paused thoughtfully. I would say that boundaries are not barriers to connection, she said. They are part of what makes healthy relationships possible. When we respect someone's boundaries, we create space for a more genuine and sustainable connection. The audience applauded warmly. Nicole continued, I also think it's important to remember that appreciation and respect can coexist. You can admire someone's work, support their career, and feel connected to their stories while still honoring their right to a private life. Whoopi nodded. That's a powerful message. Sunny added, and a very timely one. Joy said, it also reminds us that curiosity is natural, but respect is essential. The audience applauded again. Sara turned toward Nicole. Thank you for sharing your perspective so thoughtfully, Sara said. Thank you for having me, Nicole replied. I've genuinely appreciated this conversation. Whoopi smiled warmly. And we've appreciated having you here. The audience rose to its feet in a standing ovation. The cameras captured Nicole waving graciously, the host smiling, and the audience applauding with genuine enthusiasm. As the show moved toward its closing moments, the producers in the control room exchanged impressed glances. That was a powerful conversation, one producer whispered. Another nodded. It was intense, but it stayed respectful and meaningful. Within this fictional scenario, clips of the exchange quickly began circulating online. Viewers shared Nicole's comments about boundaries, authenticity, and the importance of respecting personal space. Some praised Whoopi Goldberg for asking thoughtful questions that encouraged a deeper discussion. Others applauded Nicole Kidman for responding with calmness, clarity, and emotional intelligence. Many viewers highlighted the contributions of Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Sara Haines, noting how each host helped maintain a respectful and balanced conversation. Entertainment commentators within this fictional story described the interview as a rare example of a televised discussion that remained compelling without relying on shouting or sensationalism. Social media users debated the central question of the conversation. How much access should audiences expect from public figures? Some viewers agreed strongly with Nicole's emphasis on boundaries and personal autonomy. Others argued that celebrities, because of their visibility, naturally invite a certain level of public curiosity. But many agreed on one thing. The conversation had encouraged people to think more deeply about the balance between admiration and respect. Days later, fans were still discussing Nicole's line. Boundaries are not barriers to connection. The phrase became widely shared within this fictional narrative, appearing in posts, comments, and discussions about privacy, relationships, and public life. Back in the studio, as the applause faded and the cameras prepared to cut away, Whoopi looked at Nicole one last time. Thank you for this conversation, Whoopi said sincerely. Nicole smiled warmly. Thank you for asking the questions. The audience applauded once more as the closing music began to play. The screen slowly faded to black. And then one final message appeared for viewers. If you enjoyed this story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think about the conversation between Nicole Kidman and Whoopi Goldberg in this scenario? Share your opinion in the comments below, and let us know which moment stood out to you the most. And if you want more celebrity stories, dramatic moments, and entertaining narratives, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Prime Spotlight, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.